Look at your daily habits. You take the exact same route to work. You respond to the same provocations from the same people. You crave the same validations, and you run from the same fears. You call this consistency. You call this having a distinct personality. A strategist calls it a vulnerability. You are a completely open book, sitting on a table in a room full of people looking for an advantage. Your predictability is a leash around your neck, and you handed the leash over willingly. When you react exactly how they expect you to react, you give them power. When they know your triggers, they can play you like an instrument. You think you are in control of your life, but you are just following a script that others have written for you, simply because they have figured out your algorithm. It is time to break the algorithm. It is time to step out of the light of transparency and enter the shadows of calculated chaos. 1. The burden of being understood. You have been taught that to be understood is a fundamental human need. You sit in conversations, laying out your motivations, explaining your choices, hoping the other person will nod and validate your existence. This is a fatal miscalculation. When you explain yourself, you hand over the blueprint to your psyche. You show them exactly where your walls are weak, what triggers your anxiety, and what specific words will make you yield. People do not use your transparency to understand you better. They use it to categorize you. And once you are categorized, you are easily managed. If they know you are driven by a need to please, they will manufacture scenarios where you feel obligated to serve them. If they know you have a quick temper, they will strike the match and watch you burn your own reputation to the ground while they sit back and play the victim. To win, you must surrender the desire to be understood. Let them misunderstand you. Let them form incorrect assumptions. Their ignorance regarding your true nature is your absolute advantage. 2. Formlessness as an impenetrable armor. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. If you put it into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. Water can flow, or it can crash. You must adopt this exact physical and psychological state. Do not commit to a rigid identity. The moment you declare yourself as the tough guy, the intellectual, the peacemaker, or the rebel, you have built your own cage. You have given your enemies a target. Formlessness means you adapt to the terrain, shifting your demeanor and your approach based strictly on what the situation requires, not on some arbitrary ego-driven need to be consistent. When you are formless, there is nothing for an enemy to grab onto. They swing their sword, and it cuts through empty air. They try to corner you, but you have already shifted into a different state. You are a mirror reflecting their expectations back at them, completely hollow on the inside, untouchable and untethered. 3. The weaponization of silence and the economy of words. Most people talk purely out of nervousness. They fill the empty space with chatter because silence makes them uncomfortable. They leak their plans, their grievances, and their desires to anyone willing to listen. Stop talking. Words are currency, and you are currently spending yours like a fool. Speak only when it serves a distinct tactical purpose. When someone asks you a probing question, do not rush to fill the silence. Look at them. Let the silence stretch until it becomes unbearable for them. Watch as they start talking again, frantically backtracking, revealing their true intentions because the quiet is too heavy for them to hold. By hoarding your words, you amplify your presence. When you do finally speak, your words carry weight. People will lean in, trying to decipher the meaning behind your brevity. Comment: I owe no one an explanation. 4. Cultivating the alternating current. Predictability is not just about what you do, it is about your emotional availability. The most addictive force in human psychology is intermittent reinforcement. It is the exact psychology of a slot machine. If a machine pays out every single time, it is boring. If it never pays out, the player walks away. But if it pays out randomly, the player is hooked forever. Apply this to human dynamics. Be warm, engaging, and intensely present. Make them feel like the center of the universe. Then, For no discernible reason, step back, become cold, professional, and distant. Do not be cruel, just be absent. This sudden shift forces their mind into overdrive. They will obsess over what they did wrong. They will chase the warmth you previously gave them. You have completely bypassed their logical defenses and rewired their emotional baseline to depend on your validation. You control the temperature of the room. 5. The decoy of the false routine. Calculated chaos does not mean acting like a lunatic. Total randomness is just as easily dismissed as total predictability. True chaos is concealed behind a mask of perfect order. Set up a rhythm. Lull them into a false sense of security. Let them see you taking the same actions, giving the same responses, falling into a comfortable groove. Make them believe they have you completely mapped out. They will lower their guard. They will stop watching you closely because they think they know the ending to the movie. This is the exact moment you strike. When the stakes are at their highest, shatter the pattern completely. Execute a move so entirely out of character and so precisely devastating that they are left completely paralyzed. By the time their brain reconciles the person they thought you were with the action you just took, you have already won. 6. Mirroring to conceal your true face. You do not need to invent a complex persona to hide your intentions. You simply need to use the narcissism of your opponent against them. People are obsessed with themselves. They love the sound of their own voice, the brilliance of their own ideas, and the reflection of their own face. Give that to them. Reflect their desires, their speech patterns, and their beliefs right back at them. When they look at you, make sure they only see a slightly better version of themselves. They will trust you implicitly. They will assume you are an ally because they cannot separate you from their own ego. Behind this mirror, you remain entirely hidden, operating in total secrecy, observing their weaknesses without ever exposing a single flaw of your own. 7. The pivot of sudden rupture. There will come a moment of inevitable conflict. In these moments, standard human instinct dictates a binary response: fight or flight. If someone pushes you, they expect you to push back or run away. Do neither. When they brace themselves for resistance, yield entirely. Agree with them to an absurd degree, disarming their aggression and pulling them off balance. They will stumble forward, confused by the lack of friction. Conversely, when they expect you to be docile and compliant, when they try to quietly manipulate a boundary, strike with disproportionate, overwhelming force. Unleash a level of consequence that they never factored into their risk assessment. This sudden, violent rupture in expectation destroys their confidence. They will never test your boundaries again because they cannot calculate the cost of doing so. Comment: I dictate the terms of engagement. 8. Exhausting the analyzer. Intelligent enemies will try to read you. They operate on the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. To defeat a strategic mind, you do not need to outsmart them in a direct clash. You simply need to overload their loop. Feed them contradictory data points. Align with a cause, then quietly support its opposite. Show intense ambition, followed by sudden, inexplicable laziness. Let them see you reading a book on philosophy, then catch you engaged in entirely mindless behavior. Their brain will frantically try to orient these conflicting pieces of information into a cohesive narrative. It will fail. You will exhaust their analytical capacity. They will spend so much energy trying to solve the puzzle of who you are that they will lack the resources to anticipate what you are about to do. You freeze them in a state of perpetual analysis paralysis. 9. Orchestrating controlled crises. You never truly know who is loyal to you and who is waiting for an opportunity to strike until the ship is sinking. Do not wait for a real disaster to find out. Manufacture a controlled crisis. Introduce a sudden stressor into your environment. A rumor, a sudden loss of resources, a feigned moment of weakness or panic. Step back and watch closely. See who rushes in to exploit your perceived vulnerability. See who subtly distances themselves to protect their own interests. See who stands their ground. Once the dust settles, and you reveal that the crisis was an illusion, the landscape will have changed. You will have purged the traitors from your circle before they ever had the chance to do real damage. You control the flames, and you use them to burn away the dead wood. 10. The void at the center of the storm, the ultimate execution of calculated chaos, requires absolute internal detachment. You cannot play these games if you are emotionally attached to the reactions of others. If you crave their fear, their respect, or their confusion, you are still being controlled by them. You must become a void at the center of the storm. The chaos you project outward must be met with absolute stillness inward. You do not care if they think you are a genius or a fool, a saint or a monster. These are just masks you wear for tactical advantage. When the operation is over, you take the mask off and return to nothingness. This is the source of true invincibility. A person with no identity to defend, no ego to protect, and no fixed position to hold cannot be defeated. This is not a game of being difficult for the sake of it. It is about reclaiming your sovereignty. By refusing to be predictable, you refuse to be prey. By mastering calculated chaos, you force the world to negotiate with you on your terms. Always off balance, always guessing, always trailing one step behind your actual intent. If this psychological unchaining resonates with the reality you are building, subscribe to this channel. The strategies we decode here are not for the comfortable, they are for those ready to dictate the board.